Welcome to the Ray Festival live in Bulgaria and online wherever you are in the world.
What now?
Yeah, that looks like that works. Great. So we're going to start with some introductions to share who we are.
Okay, so I'm gonna introduce Alannah here, right? You can see her design and her beautiful smile. She's a 1-3 emotional manifesting generator, and she's got a lot of definition. And there's quite a number of life forces involved, 9 channels. And she's on the cross of Maya. So she's here with recognition, integration, acceptance, and curiosity, right? Here to bring her experience to you, share her experience with you, and if it's correct for you, empower you in her process. And kind of, yeah, cross of the Maya, right? So she's here to share what she's discovered, share her world with you, right? And I think that's a little bit of what we'll be doing here today. And so much of what that is, you'll get from her frequency, right? You'll get from her imprint and how she feels to you. So yeah, Alannah, is that okay for you?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Cool.
So I'm going to introduce Hagen. And Hagen is over 5 years now in your experiment as a 2-5 splenic projector. And you can see his definition here, that he's really here to bring his individual, real mutative guidance to the collective by recognizing what needs to be improved upon and really looking at those patterns and examining those patterns and then sharing those patterns that are vital for our collective success and into the future. And I think you're going to get a sense of that today too. From my humble opinion, he's absolutely brilliant at guiding and empowering others to find their clarity about their own process and discover their own unique joy of living. And this is where I really see that he experiences his own personal success in his life. And it's an honor to witness that in him. He's the cross of explanation, which lucky for me, the cross of Maya really appreciates that. I love to know how things work, and gratefully he's really good at explaining things. So always have lots of questions. I think you're going to experience that as well today. Every time that I hear Hagen speak, he really shares his unique and inspiring insights. And I always learn new things along the way. So I'm looking forward to this journey together. So is that good, Hagen? Is there anything else you'd like me to share?
No, that's fine. That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
It's a joy to be here with you too.
So let's see. So this is our coaching framework at Regenerative Human Design. These are the frameworks that we work with and with our clients in our coaching by design practice, where we offer classes and spaces and private sessions. And this is how we just simply put the 2 systems that we work with. We all know human design, and we articulate that as how it maps who someone is and how they operate in the world. And then the other framework that we bring in alongside human design is something called organic intelligence. And organic intelligence, or OI, which is another way we refer to it, maps what state someone is in, how to relate to that state, and how to help them grow their processing capacity. And our primary interest for ourselves and for our clients is safety and life enjoyment through the deconditioning process. So before we get into the details of it, we wanted to talk a little bit about our relationship, because that's really where it began for us. And this is obviously a great quote from Ra, something that we live by, and that is, with awareness, any relationship can be a success. So I'm going to invite Hagen to share a little bit about our quantum here and from his perspective.
All right. So just out of curiosity, I'm wondering what kind of the familiarity with human design is that's in the room, right? Like, Alannah and I, we do coaching by design, but then maybe there's some analysts who are in here. I'm not immediately seeing the chat here. Hold on. If anyone wants to chime in, like how familiar are you with human design? Analyst, cool. Yeah, so maybe there's more. Or maybe you're new, right? PTL4, Jean. Yeah, hey Jean, good to see you.
Hi, Jean.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Cool. So yeah, so then there's quite a few things that you can immediately see when you look at these two charts, right? And you think about them in relationship to each other, think about them in connection to each other. And of course, with human design, we look at the type difference. That's the first thing that's maybe obvious, right? Sacral and non-sacral, and projector and generator together. And then also the difference in emotional definition. So if you're new, something that we're looking at right now is this red square here and the openness on the other side. This means that I'm vulnerable or susceptible and also open to the conditioning from Alannah in that particular place in my design, right? And the same is true for any of these other centers that are open and where the other person has them colored in and vice versa. And that's how we relate. That's where we connect and meet each other, okay? Of course, the next thing that is obvious is the emotional definition, right? 50% of us have it, the other 50% of us do not, right? And that is a major conditioning element. That's something that's very impactful and also brings a lot of intensity. And that's kind of the story here, and why we see ourselves surfing in the wave here, is the intensity of the experience in the openness and in the amplification of each other, right? And living together and navigating a lot of roles together and different things, right? That requires a lot of awareness. There's a lot of intensity involved, there's a lot of complexity involved, and those are all areas where people can get stuck in, or people can experience their own not self tendencies and so on, and then need support around that, right? And awareness. So why do we then use these two frameworks? I'll keep it short, right? I'll keep it short. Human design has helped us to, first of all, enter into this relationship correctly. And I can't emphasize how important that is, or can't emphasize enough how important that is, right? The way you enter into something shapes the whole experience, and it comes back to you at the end, right? So if it's entered into correctly, you get to have the correct experience. And so whatever the challenges are going to be in that experience, they're correct, and you're able to grow through them. You're able to mature through them. So that's one major advantage that we got thanks to human design. We also are proficient enough with the system that we can use it to map and put into words what we are experiencing, using the charts and using the keynotes. Okay, and it helps us to live together without fault, blame, or shame. That's a major relief in this world, right? To live together with people who are not on that trip anymore, right? So we get to then see more clearly and understand simply why things work and why things don't work, and come to find the way forward, discover, love, and empower each other and ourselves, right? Not lose ourselves in the process. Now, organic intelligence is essential to that as well, because it helps us recognize and support each other within the arising of the intensity. So intensity comes up, there's something that happens. I think you all know, life gets intense, things happen. And then there's all kinds of states that emerge with that. The nervous system enters into all kinds of states. And so we find the way to relate correctly within this complex arising of states, and supporting each other through that, recognizing what that is and what that means for a deconditioning process, and also deconditioning the way our nervous system has been conditioned to, get jacked up over things it doesn't really have to get jacked up about, right? And so to support each other in deconditioning with kindness, in the emergence of all of that. Beyond that, we also grow our bandwidth together in a pleasurable and fulfilling way, where our deconditioning process is not, going through this deep, dark tunnel of just excavating and going into all the traumas and all the things. That's not our process. And we found a different way. And we discovered that it's mostly just about growing bandwidth to be able to contain or have the intensities and the complexities that arise without that becoming an overwhelming thing. Once it's within the bandwidth capacity, it's no longer a problem. You don't lose your observer awareness. You can handle it. You can navigate it. And growing that bandwidth is something that's really, really key. And that's what we want to help our clients with. So these two systems together, they make our life easier, make our life a lot easier, interesting and fun. And we're not through our 7 years together yet, so it's kind of hard to say what is this experience all about. We're still in it, we'll reflect on it afterwards. But so far we're both, on the same page that life brought us the perfect relationship to grow and learn about how to navigate intensities and complexity correctly, and with that, make a contribution based on what we've learned. So our commitment to each other, as well to the people that work with us, right, is one of mutual growth, safety, and life enjoyment through the deconditioning process. It's also proven by this piece of string here around my fingers. So whenever, Alannah, I'm dragging on too long, you can pull and listen.
The cross of explanation sometimes needs a little
Yeah.
nudge.
Yeah. So without further ado, we can get started here. The first thing that I'd like to kind of put on the map for everybody here is, what is the invitation and the proposal here? What's the ask of the human design system when it comes to your life? When it comes to, what is the impact of this system potentially for your life if you really decide to take the ride, if you decide to embark on the journey and have this life transformative process? What does that really mean, right? Because there are many things we might dream into, there are many things we might imagine into, but what's really the reality of that too? What are the implications? And in general, I would just say that, most people that we've worked with, they have experienced to greater or lesser extent that their type, strategy, and authority makes a very meaningful difference in their life. It helps to make things easier. It's something that's a simple formula. You can kind of get your head around that and apply it or not. Some people also get stuck on type, strategy, and authority, and more these days, for all kinds of reasons. But then we also look at the radical transformations that are offered by human design, and they require readiness. These are real radical transformations of how you're living. So if changing the way that you make decisions isn't radical enough, then there's also some other deeper transformations that human design has in store. Those really require readiness to handle the intensity that brings. We'll go into that in a moment. Human design is real. It's got real consequences. And so what we are concerned with is really the safety of that process and making that as safe a process as possible for our clients. And maybe in ways that are safer than when we went into it the first time around for ourselves. So here you can see just a little image kind of charting the journey here of becoming who you are. And that's the proposal, right? Human design isn't really about anything else. It's about becoming who you really are, who you were born to be, right? And given the time and cycle that we emerged in, that we were born into, in the state of the world, there is a deconditioning process for most of us, right? Unless you were raised by your design all the way through, there's a deconditioning process that happens for most of us. And it rides on the back of this kind of this tripartite life that is described in human design, where life unfolds through these 3 distinct phases. And we have this image here of the butterfly, right? Like the caterpillar, and then caterpillar phase, moving into its chaos, you know, of what happens in the cocoon. It takes place about the 30-year mark here, 29 years of the Saturn return, the Saturn cycle. That's the first stage of life. And then in between, we have all the way up to the Chiron return, the second stage of life, and then the third stage of life that is after, where we really emerge and come to really fulfill our purpose in this life. Right? That's kind of the archetypic image for that in the archetypic process. Then we also look at our chart and we engage with that in human design to decondition, to really recognize, okay, I'm living my life in a way that's not true to me, in a way that's just been, you know, punished and rewarded into me by my upbringings. But now I'm really ready to, you know, stand on my own 2 feet and come out of all of this conditioning, shed it, and find out what it's really like to live as myself. For that, we have the type, strategy, and authority, right? So that happens one decision at a time, according to what your unique design is. And then you have the 4 radical transformations that touch on your diet, your environment, your motivation, and your perspective, right? So that's a deep overhaul of your whole physical process, the body, where you live, how you see, and how you think, right? Your whole psychological process too. That's deep. That's about as deep as you can go, right? And that there is an organic timing to this, where the cells have this organic shedding that's happening over a cycle of 7 years. In the meantime, we experience all those changes, right? And that's kind of where I want to land on here, that this is very complex and intense change, okay? That's something to mark. So as deeply fascinating and beautiful and awe-inspiring that human design is, and I really mean that, the lived experience is also intense with lots of complex information and energy to sort through, especially when you're mostly working through it on your own, right? So how do we come around that? Alannah, would you like to say a few words here?
Yeah, so how do we actually experience that change on a biological level? We have 2 competing impulses within our biology that comes up. And one is don't die, survive, stay stable, don't change, right? Keep the system is functioning just fine the way it is here in this little seed, and we're just going to stay here and keep things stable. Then at the same time, we also have, oh wow, a bird that just came on the window, a woodpecker. And then we also have this evolutionary impulse that's also emerging in all of us. It's about growing. And so it's these 2 competing movements that happen. But what's challenging is that the body, like the mind can distinguish, but the body cannot distinguish between these 2 movements of change. It cannot distinguish between that which is disintegrative and that which is evolutionary. So without supportive enough conditions, our system will resist its own transformation. So like with unconscious biases, addictive habits, not self patterns, physical syndromes that just are there to keep things the same. And this is because radical change can be quite dysregulating, disintegrating, and potentially lethal for our system. So if the change is forced, it feels too intense and disruptive to our biological stability. Therefore, the body will opt for adaptive strategies that deal with the intensity, but keep us stuck. In the same way, negative conditioning continually challenges the physiology with high intensity due to amplification and distortion. The body deals with it through adaptive strategies, but it keeps us in resistance with a depleted battery. It's unhealthy and disintegrative over the long term. Now, many of our clients arrive in a double bind. where for the sake of their own well-being, something has to change. But even small changes are too much and can result in kickbacks. This is due to a lack of biological resilience. If we request or advise too much change, the client's system will not be able to make much progress on it because the biology underneath really needs gentle care to access stability and experience growth in a way that doesn't feel like too much change. Our personalities have been wired by high intensity stimulation and conditioning, and this requires a renewed education and appreciation for relaxation and low intensity living. And we provide such care by recognizing and attuning to the different phases and levels of stability that the client's biology might be in. We then help our clients find the resources to support their evolutionary growth in a way that matches their experience. With this particular insight, which is really the foundation of so much of our work, it's really about this, starting, do we want to stay as the seed or do we want to move and grow? And how do we do this? Always coming back to this particular insight, we begin by recalibrating our own relationship to sustainable growth, recharging our own batteries, and stabilizing our own system first. And then we're ready to go out and meet and connect with our clients and bring this to them. Let's see. Can I click that, Hagen, or do you need to? Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah. we can wrestle for the mouse here.
Your turn.
Yeah, so thank you. That was really nice. So here's a nice raw quote that really chimes in with what we're presenting today, right? It's about understanding that the mechanism is 99% of it. If you're a personality and you're looking for awakening, well, 99% of that is your body, your brain, your health, your place, your relationship to the world around you, your environment, and your perspective. And so this means tending to everything that's really underneath the surface that makes the awakening possible. Really tending to the biological hardware underneath that's running things. And what we're about to take a look at is how we nurture in our practice that 99% within the scope of coaching by design. Okay. So let's take a look. Oh, is there a question here or? Oh no, Lisa, sorry, I saw your hand and I thought you were raising your hand. No, thank you. So let's take a look at different ways in which that the biology underneath could be operating, okay, in a way that helps us coach better. So first thing to recognize is that the brain and the body can only work with what is within its bandwidth range, what it can actually process, okay? And that bandwidth is the limit, really, on the level of complexity and intensity that a person is capable of integrating and translating into results. And this bandwidth depends on the overall phase that the biology is in. And there are 3 different distinct phases that have a different capacity for complexity and intensity. And the phase determines the person's readiness for change, for transformation, and awakening. And depending on the phase and available bandwidth, the body will have different priorities that need to be satisfied in sequence. Okay, so depending on the phase that the client's in, their system will have different priorities, different things on the agenda. And that agenda may not necessarily be top of mind agenda so much. It's underneath the thing that the design is looking for. Okay, that the body is looking for. The very first one is safety in the here and now, right? If our biology is not operating as if it's safe enough in the present moment environment, it will be unavailable for anything other than feeling safer and feeling better, right? So that's kind of the first thing that's happening. As we know, prolonged survival states, they reduce the bandwidth, and all the energy is being used on trying to find safety and security. In today's world, with the global cycle that's shifting, disintegrating social structures, increased absorption into the virtual, dissociation from the natural, our brain stems may be in heightened states of hypervigilance and struggle to reset. Right. And so the first thing that we want to kind of acknowledge for our client is that we provide that safe container, and then we get that to register at the level of the brainstem, right? So that it starts to downshift and downregulate all of these heightened states. So that then we have bandwidth available and availability of presence and awareness, connection to the here and now, and just an underlying sense of safety, right? This is all very splenic, I know, but this is really universal too. So we see most clients come in like this. And I remember walking into Idalina Fernandez's office for human design session, also like that. Idalina, she's also speaking on this conference, I think. I walked into a state like that, and she treated me very well. And I didn't even recognize what state I was in, right? And she just kind of, by the end of the session, just brought me back to being here now, right? That was the value, because it's really something that merits special attention and care. And people can come in with very complex issues, right? There's PTSD, there's all kinds of things, right? We need to pay attention to that and learn how to care for that. Because if we are going to coach somebody by design and guide them through into the deconditioning process, that's a role of caregiving, right? That's a care kind of skill, right? And so there's a special attention there. So depending on the phase and the particular state that they're in the moment, there's a different interaction style that's going to be required from us in order to be helpful. And in order for us to understand what that means, we have to see these different phases, and we have to see them by looking at the biology that's underneath the content of our conversation. It's underneath our personalities interacting. Okay, so that's what we have in store today.
So here's our 3-phase map for deconditioning. These phases were developed by Stephen Hoskinson of Organic Intelligence, and they're based in complexity science and neurophysiology and over 20 years of his clinical experience. So as Hagen mentioned, the phase really determines the nature of how a client's system is functioning and operating in the world. Our system maintains its stability, right? Staying in that seed, no change, by reinforcing the phase that it's in. Phase 1 wants to stay in phase 1. Phase 2 wants to stay in phase 2. And phase 3 wants to stay in phase 3. This also maps the quality of experience that someone is having, the place from which they are interacting with you, and how they process your frequency and whatever you say. And all of that is really dependent on the phase they are in. Now, in reality, all 3 phases are always there, happening at different levels, different places, and at different times. But when we're working with clients, we're looking for the dominant phase that the client's physiology is in. That's what is shaping their experience. Homogenized conditioning has the underlying agenda to keep us stuck in phase 1. No change, stay stable, survive, do it the way it's always been done, stay stuck in chaos. Our bandwidth is very limited in phase 1, as our battery is constantly depleted with high intensity experiences, using energy we don't really have on things we don't really want to be doing anyway. But the good news is the design has an underlying agenda to shift towards phase 3 and its evolutionary growth. The intermediary stage of phase 2 is the essential bridge. It is where we regain resilience by reconnecting to the environment through the senses and stabilizing a healthy, pleasurable relationship with the body. We build foundation for consistently accessing inner authority. We acquire more of a buffer, become wiser about the environments we spend our time in, and we begin to recharge our batteries more consistently and have agency about where we put our energy. In phase 3, we become prosilient, not just capable of bouncing back from high intensity situations, but sustainably and consistently integrating them into meaningful growth. We are effortlessly aligned to our design, have clear boundaries, and can surrender to what life brings. Now, the two spirals at the top, the red and the blue, represent two different kinds of conditioning along the trajectory. The red spiral represents negative reinforcement. It maintains the status quo of phase 1 and basic survival in the face of potential disintegration. The purple spiral represents positive reinforcement. It supports us to overcome the inertia of chaos and shed our conditioning and emerge on an evolutionary trajectory. As we proceed, we're going to look into each one of these phases in more detail. And Hagen's going to give you the technical view, and I'll share with you kind of the story of the process so you can imagine what it's like as we move through each of the phases.
Okie dokie. So, technical view here. What you're looking at right now is the actual OI attunement map. So this is kind of the map that was brought forward by Stephen Hoskinson, and this is what they use for their clinical process with people in trauma therapy and such. And so this helps us kind of understand what's been mapped in the neurophysiology and the way in which that a certain biology is operating. Okay, and so we're looking at phase 1 right now. And the story in phase 1 is basically reinforcing the not self, right? And that's what it's all organized around. And I've added two kind of elements here on this one, which is, our not self that eventually we come to discover, right? Is kind of built around trauma, our developmental disturbances, right? The way that we've not been raised according to our design. And then other factors. And what it's really all coming down to is it's what's wrong attention. What's wrong attention? That is a major biological marker for a system. It's it brings together disorientation, a negativity bias, and a level of disorganization that is being reinforced. That's there, that the system is constantly being drawn to. And that's what keeps it in the chaos. That is dysregulation. Okay, so it's kind of this pattern of adapting to chaos, and the pattern is what provides the stability, but at the same time the pattern is in a way dysregulated. It's dysfunctional. It's actually not going to keep us going very well for the long term. At best it keeps us stable in the not self, but it can also be disorganizing and lead to disintegration. The marker for that also is dissociation, which means there's a certain level of freeze that's in the system. And that also means something. It means that, even though the client might be there, it is not their fault, right? And that's kind of the starting point with human design too, is that we recognize it really isn't our fault, and it's not our client's fault, right? This is a biological process that's operating. And once we get the hang of how that works, we get to come out of that, and we get to bring ourselves back, and we get to help other people come back from that. So what are we going to focus on with this is getting out of this kind of out of control and over controlling situation, right? So the client will be presenting situations where it's hard to find the ideal level of control that they really need in order to have agency in life. There's always going to be some kind of complication around something being too little or too much. And that's happening within a system that is mostly erratic, even though they may be presenting very well. It may not look erratic, or it may not look chaotic on the surface, but there may be a certain level of, basically a limited processing capacity underneath. They can't actually translate new input or, new feedback into anything that's actionable necessarily, right? Unless it's very, very, very small, very, very, very attuned to what their system needs and what is like the next step that's within range. We're trying to find what that is together. So in our work, we kind of provide the setting where people can can come into and just experience being safe, right, in their space. And then once the alarm systems have kind of shifted down, then there's some range that becomes available for working with what the next developmental step is going to be. And we co-explore, because we don't necessarily know what that means for our client, right? We don't come at our client with like an agenda and like, here's what you got to do, and if you don't do it, it's failure, and so on. We don't do any of that. In phase one, the client is mostly experiencing and kind of suffering the stuckness of freeze. When it's too much freeze that's taken over the bandwidth. And the right attuned relationship to that is going to be less input, less demand. Okay, and Alannah, I think you will speak to this a little bit about how that works. Yeah, there's another thing here that I just want to put in. In OI, we say trauma is unintegrated resource. It's not the actual event that happened, but it's the residual intensity that's left in the body. That's good news because the body knows exactly how that residual intensity can be integrated into growth of new structure. Right? New biological structure, rewiring of the neurophysiology and resyncing of the psychology. Body knows how to do that. So what we're trying to find in our practice is how do we align with this underlying healing nature that we all have, right? How do we find enough like, okay, just a sense of, okay, let's relax into this healing nature that we have. Right? Our systems know how to do this already. This is not necessarily something that the client has to connect to, right? We don't necessarily have to, although we do teach those that are interested, we don't necessarily have to teach this whole framework for the client to be able to move through it because it's a biological thing. Okay, so, all right, Alannah, please tell us the
Great,
story.
Yeah, that was really great. Thank you. So phase one. Given all those circumstances, given the challenges of the chaos and the disorganization, we start with ease. Clients come to us and there's the recognition that what they really need is rest and regeneration. And many really need to learn how to do this. So many of us need to do that to learn how to recharge the system. So we focus on safety. Topic is safety. It's about cultivating a safe and comfortable environment for that rest to happen within our space and then within our coaching space, and then also helping them find that for themselves. Introducing the concept of finding neutral here and now awareness, neutral is our friend in phase one. Discovering neutral is like, wow, I didn't actually even know that was possible. I thought it was high and low and high and low. I'm an emotional being, so I know all about the highs and the lows. Our support is a non-demanding presence. Like Hagen was mentioning, we don't ask them to be doing things. We don't continually have all these demands on their system, and encouraging them to do as little as possible and really starting to recover that observer capacity. And I know for myself, when I was going through this process, I'm an MG, and emotional MG. So I've got a lot of energy. I've got 3 motors defined, so I've got a lot of things happening. And I had no idea how tired I was until I started entering into this process. I spent with my OI mentor. I remember that summer that I was really going through a lot of this, he said to me, to become a connoisseur of rest is what he said to me. And my sacral responded. I was emotionally clear that this is what I needed to do. And it was one of the most valuable experiences that I've had, to really deeply go into my own need for rest. There were times when I was like napping twice a day, like just sometimes maybe 15 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, but to really allow my sacral to find that ability to recharge. So yeah, that's just a little bit about my own experience there in phase one. So clients in phase one, they really struggle with type strategy and authority. It's a very difficult ask of their system that's already overwhelmed. they can have very limited or no access to strategy and authority, and the body can be very uncomfortable and dissociative place. So we really start by focusing on the signature as a pathway towards ease and replenishment into the correct environments where rest is possible. So generator satisfaction, manifestor peace, projector success, reflector surprise of doing less. We work with a lot of generators who are looking for their response. That's a very common request that I get continually in my practice in particular. They really have no idea how to access it. Okay, human design says, okay, I'm supposed to respond. This is the way I'm supposed to do it, but I don't understand what's going on here. I don't know how to do this, right? And so by aligning them first to start looking for what they find satisfying in the beginning in very small ways, like whether it's just like a cup of tea, and like really taking that time during the day to actually feel into that satisfaction and acknowledging that and that quality, not what the mind thinks should be satisfying. It's really a very different experience when you start turning into what the sacral is responding to. Their bodies start to experience in the moment where they're supposed to be, and they start to gently wake up their sacral. And feeding the system with positive reinforcement, like we were talking about on those spirals on the map before, through satisfaction. And another key in phase 1 is to discover that the sacral really needs regeneration. It moves in cycles. And so many of us generators, as I was mentioning before, we really have the habit of pushing into high intensity over and over and over again. We have all this energy and it's like, okay, I'm just going to do. I don't know how not to do, right? And learning how to go through that cycle and really learning how to rest and how to experience the satisfaction of doing less. It's deeply replenishing and regenerating to the sacral. So the good news is in phase 1, we do have the biological advantage on our side. Our bodies have an inherent healing nature, and given enough rest, time, and space, the body will begin to heal on its own. And when we start to receive those signals of that healing as it is occurring, which is, as a little for the third time, satisfaction, peace, success, and surprise, because I can't say that enough. It's really in that gentle awareness that's starting to happen in our observer. There's a remembrance, and the system begins to shift. Would you like to take over there, Hagen?
Okay, so following the shift, what happens, right? If we have enough time, right, imagining ourselves like in a space where we have enough time to just kind of go zonk, right? I just rest, I don't do anything, I let my batteries recharge. At some point, I'm gonna start to become interested in the outside world. And that's like a phase 2 moment. You know, eyes open and they're just paying a little bit more attention to what's actually going on around here, right? And they become interested in the environment. That's a moment. That is a moment. Because what phase 2 will do with that is just bring it right back inside. Bring it right back into the inner echo chamber of what's wrong and into the conditioned system. So what we help our clients with is kind of recognizing and tapping that moment of when they're starting to come a little bit more in the here and now. And we find non-invasive ways of just encouraging that along. You know, non-invasive ways that just feel easy enough for the client. And that's kind of our skill that we have to practice ongoingly. It's finding like the attuned match to the client system. Because if it's going to be too invasive, it'll be too much. And the system will reject it, right? So we find that kind of that invitation of coming into orientation, but also that invitation then for our clients to intentionally practice that. So phase 2 is a phase of like doing self-regulation. This is a more active phase where we have to like effort our way out of our conditioning. And we recharge our batteries so we have the energy for that. and we effort wisely. Alannah will talk about this too a little bit. I'll give you the story of that. But this is basically this is not the no choice phase. Right, this is the choice phase. Choice is like active choosing. Okay, that's not a good environment for me. That's a good environment for me. And I am identified with that intentional process. That's all part of the process of the biology re-equipping itself with agency. And that's the agency that's going to be needed to be released from that phase one conditioning. Right. So this is where we come in with some like intentional work that will stabilize the awareness and the attention in the here and now. So orientation is like simply connecting to the environment through the senses in the here and now. And to do that, but also not to do too much of that, right? To find like the level of effort that feels easy enough to also just see where is that already happening. Like kind of coaching the client into experiencing where is my awareness already contacted by just signals from the here and now. And that's organizing for the system, because that tells our brainstem, hey, you're okay. You know, you're here and now, you're not in that past event. You're in a safe enough, comfortable enough environment, if that's where you are, right? And our system begins to drink that in and receive the nourishment of that. That's what we're trying to encourage along here. And so, yeah, this takes a little bit of attentional control. Whereas in phase one, the attention was constantly hijacked by the messaging of Fatima. So, Alannah, I'm wondering, we had said that we were going to do this actually.
Yeah, I think
How do you feel about that now?
I think we should let's just explain phase two, and then I'll invite you, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay.
So the last thing here to know from the technical point of view is, well, pleasure, orientation to pleasure. That's a key. And we come to discover that pleasure, the body's pleasure, our organism's pleasure, is not something that's random. It's not something that is just kind of, okay, this is what I enjoy, that's what I enjoy. No, it has an organizing trajectory to it. It's actually how the body unfolds through the life, is through what you sincerely enjoy. And part of the process here is going to be rediscovering what your pleasures are. Alannah will say more about that. Because in phase two, there's more like active doing and self-regulation that starts to become available. The client has more agency. They feel more agency. And they have maybe a little bit more bandwidth and energy available. This is when we can start to bring in frameworks and practices to do that all help to encourage this whole system along. And there's many, many, many different things that can help, right? And it's an intermediary stage. It's not the end game. It's not the passenger consciousness game yet, but it's an intermediary stage in order to help us stabilize. Okay? So, please, Alannah.
Yeah, it's so nice to be in phase two. Thank you. Out of phase one.
Yeah. Oh man, so happy to be here.
Oh, does that feel good? Yeah. And so phase two, our focus is really on wise effort and developing, as Hagen was saying, the client's sense of agency and that empowered sense of I can do this. And in this phase, clients can begin to practice type strategy and authority and become interested in really experiencing what their signature is about. And we primarily focus on the practice of orientation in this phase. Now, when we have grown our capacity to be in the here and now more and more, strategy and authority can emerge. The here and now is the only place in which strategy and authority can happen. I'm going to say that again. The here and now is the only place in which strategy and authority can happen. It is our body's ongoing dialogue with the environment. If our intention is hijacked away from that, we can't really tell what's going on. Regaining the necessary attentional control to be able to follow type strategy and authority is part of our wise effort here. Now, typically clients come to human design in phase one looking to follow strategy and authority and surrender to the body. Me, I was that for sure. But in phase 1, there isn't anything to surrender into yet. The body will go right back into chaos and dysregulation. We are self-regulating here in phase 2 through intentional effort. Being identified with the process and cultivating our ego strength is what holds us together in this phase. We can't let go of a self until we actually have one. So here we are building selfhood by discovering what we truly like and don't like by following our strategy and authority. In phase 1, we were conditioned to like things that are bad for us and to dislike things that are good for us. Phase 2 is the heroic work of reclaiming who we are designed to be. The support in phase 1 is a relationship of care that gently helps us to get out of that chaotic loop and into phase 2. The client's intention to stabilize is an essential step, and this means choice and personal agency, choosing where our attention is going to go. In this phase, we begin to cultivate our access to pleasure, a re-education on how to experience the simple joy of just being alive and being ourselves. With continued ease and wise effort, we start to experience subtle shifts in our system, more oriented towards what is enjoyable, the pleasure of our individual designs, and this begins the change that doesn't feel like change. Underline, highlight, circle. Begins the change that doesn't feel like change. Remember the seed in the beginning and the plant. So at this phase, our generator clients, me too, are starting to consistently experience more energy. And we help them to focus that energy on their own satisfaction. By the way, I'm just using generator as an example because that's what I am and that's what I know. And this is also applicable to all the types. So please forgive me if there's, and if you have questions in the end, please ask those. We're really open to answering that. It's just easier for me to talk about generators. So yeah, the sacral field is a beautiful feedback system. If we continually feed it with a particular kind of pleasure that is utterly unique to each generator, they magically start aligning to that which is correct for them. They have the agency and the energy to commit to that change for themselves, to walk the path of correctness because it just feels so good. In one of our spaces this week, a client of ours shared, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about this actually, that she's been with us for a while and she's been taking some classes and doing sessions with us. And she shared kind of shyly that she had discovered her new love of writing poetry and how she was kind of keeping it secret, but how she had just so much energy for it. And the pleasure of her satisfaction was palpable through Zoom. You could just feel it coming across. And those are the moments that feel the most satisfying to me, is to helping those generators, those of us looking for our satisfaction. So during this phase 2, with lots and lots of orientation on board, our clients are finding more and more agency to choose where they put their attention, to limit exposure to excess intensity, which is really important, and have more energy to be able to experiment with their type strategy and authority, and continuing to focus on the type signature as their guiding light. So one of the things we wanted to experiment with here, I think we have time, Hagen, and we were just wondering about where we were going to be in the process, but it looks like we're going to have plenty of time. So we wanted to offer to do an orientation for you guys just to get a taste of it. So I'd like to invite Hagen to walk us through that, please.
Okay. So the first and only choice to make is, is it correct for you to participate in this? this little experiment here of orientation. And then, yeah. How about you, Lisa? Lisa Marie?
Yeah, loving everything so far. I can just hear the tenderness and the care and the process really holding everyone through. It's really lovely what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah. Encourage anyone else. Yeah, I'm excited. What do you got for us?
Maris has also got a question for you, Alannah. Maybe we want to take that one first, and then we do the little exercise, or
Sure,
what?
you bet, Maris. Yeah, happy to. I've been enjoying seeing you there with Ra behind you. So thank you for turning your camera on. Appreciate it.
My little valley here. My
Did you say you're in
question,
Bali? Is that what you said?
my valley, I am a white valley.
Bali, got it.
He's coast, so valley, coast.
Perfect.
Working together here. And my question is straight to a point. Profile. You are a 1-3. A 1-3 is a lower trigram profile, which we know by the theory that is someone really, really, really inwards kind of thing. So I would like to ask you, how was that during the first phase, let's say, and if you can talk a little bit at the phase 2, so how your profile actually deal with that, and how old are you, just for us to understand what cycle you are.
Beautiful question. Thank you so much. I would love to share that with you. I'm 51, so I'm in my Chiron right now. So, and just for context, I've been in my experiment with human design for 7.5 years, coming up on 8 years. So when organic intelligence, the practice of organic intelligence came into my life, I was about 5.5 years into my experiment. So just to kind of give you that context. Yes, as a 1-3, I am designed to introspect, to continually look inward and to really, to see what's going on here, right? But as a 1-3, what we have to remember with the first line mind is the first line mind is actually there to watch the body's experience. And what can happen from my own experience as a first line, it can get really attached to that what's wrong attention and that inward draw of attention continually. And what I've discovered through the practice of orientation, which Hagen's going to share with us, is that the more I bring my attention out into the environment, out into the space that I'm in, ironically enough, I have more access to my own introspective nature, because then it naturally happens as though like I'm on a swing, right? So I swing my attention out and the intensity of my system lowers. And then I can come back in. Like, just to give you an example, we were preparing for this presentation before, right? We're getting ready for all of this. I'm emotional. We did all this work yesterday, as we've been working on this. I'm emotional. We'd set everything up. Hagen's splenic, right? So he's in the now. He wants to change things at the last minute. And we had this moment where I was like, I can feel the intensity rising up, right? There comes the wave. The wave's like, and the sacral saying, no, I don't have the energy to make this change right now. This feels too unstable for me, right? So I can feel my inward draw, everything's coming up. And what I did was I spent a lot of my energy just orienting and getting out into the environment and letting that fire start to just simmer down, so that then I could actually introspect and see what's really happening here. Like, what do I have the energy for? What don't I have the energy for? And then Hagen could ask me some sacral questions, and then we were gratefully able to move through this. And here we are. So does that answer your question, Maris?
Yes. I am fascinated by lower trigram profiles, because I do many analyses, as you can imagine. And so when I have lower trigram profiles, I'm a 6-2, so I'm a 2 as well. But I have this curiosity, because I cannot imagine, what is to be a 1-3, someone that is all the time investigating what is not working, you know, all the
Yes.
time, all the time, all the time. That's fascinated me. I mean, what am I going to say to a 1-3 on the first reading, who is in the first phase, you know? What you're going to
Right.
say, oh, wow, you are always, you know, you go to the simple. They, you know,
Yeah.
and slowly they, and so I have met many 1-3s that have this, you know, difficulty, and they may judge, oh, I don't like these, I don't want to be, all that kind of happens on their stage 1. You know, I like you see by what you're putting there, but it's amazing to see someone, you know, blossoming, this tree blossoming your 6 at the moment. So I'm on Cairo return also. I'm already finished. I'm 61 years old now, and I came to design with 42. So it's from Uranus opposition and now Chiron. In fact, my Uranus opposition is Ras cross. It's Ras, Sun and Earth and everything. And I met him when I was 42 in Ibiza.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
it's a
Wonderful. Oh, what a gift.
it's
Yeah.
fractal, we know that. But thank you so much. I don't want to take your time because it's just brilliant. So just
Oh,
like to say that it's you know, a pleasure to see you blossoming, your 6th line coming out, and
oh.
you're in the voice, you know. What you say is what you say, it's your voice.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your perspective and sharing your frequency with us. It's really valuable. I do have one response to your question about what do you say to a 1-3 in a reading in phase 1. And what I heard and what was given to me, which was the biggest gift, was all those mistakes you make, all the bumping and all the trial and error and all those things that are happening. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Pure
And that,
experience, right?
pardon?
It's just experience. We take ourselves way too seriously, and it's just like it's just experience. We're learning through that all.
Yeah. It's a big learning as a 3rd line. It's a big learning. Yeah. So that's, yeah, just my one little response there, Maris. But thank you so much for the question. I appreciate it. It's always, I have lots of energy to share my experience. So
Yeah, 1-3s are incredible. I love learning from you guys as well. You're brilliant. Investigating your discoveries, and yeah, I love your perspective of how you watch yourself and all of that. Lovely.
Thank you so much.
You're presenting the next. Oh, are we experimenting now a little bit?
Yeah, I was just taking a moment to just feel that satisfaction.
Yeah, let's all get into it.
Yeah.
It is yummy.
Yeah,
It's changing to phase 3 now.
Yeah.
That's our trajectory, folks.
That's on my second question. And what is the modulator from 1, 2, and 3? I'm fascinated by how you're putting it, because I live the other side of it. I live all the you know, the experiment itself, really, what goes through the mind of the person and everything. You're organizing it here. This is brilliant work. I definitely have lost questions to you about the phases that will help, I guess, the work of the analysts, you know, because the vision you put in here is very responsible vision.
Thank you so much for that, Iris. Yeah. Just what is your type, by the way?
I'm a 6-2 generator from cross of identification.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
And emotional, beautifully emotional.
Four motors, no G, no spleen, no throat, and the logic head. I used to tell them, cut your head off, Paris, cut your head off. And I did a good job.
That's awesome. Yay for raw. Thank you for bringing frequency in. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Hagen. Invitation to you.
Okay. So with that said, are you guys available and ready for a little bit of orientation practice? We're going to keep it really simple. The invitation is to bring your attention out into the external world, right? So off of like the images that might be moving on the inside, or sensations that you might be having, emotions or thoughts. Just going to effort a little bit to just turn the attention easily into the exterior and just receive what's there, right? Nice and simple. And there's a simple prompt also that we use for this to kind of engage the orienting structures in your system. That is, let your eyes go where they want to go, right? So let's just take 20 seconds or something like that to just let your eyes go where they want to go and see what they want to see, what they might like to see, right? Just kind of noting when your eyes, what they are drawn to, when they land on something, and just seeing when they might like to move on to the next thing, right? And we're just kind of hopping around, noticing what they notice. Right? And stretch and the yawn comes through. That's right on time. Just taking in your space, right? Colors, textures, shapes. You look around and maybe the mind is thinking about things or trying to name things. And we're just interested in really the seeing of that. Really just the seeing. And then just coming back and saying, okay, what difference did that make? Just 20 seconds. That, right? Like how are you doing? How are you feeling overall? Noticing any difference? Can be small, can be easy.
Pleasurable would be my word.
Pleasurable.
Yeah.
Maris, how about you? Yeah, do you notice any difference?
But the first pull was really I'm a focus generator. I am gate 9 in sun gate 9. So I focus, my perspective also is focus. So I went to pleasure of satisfaction, peace, success, surprise is written here. So that kind of went, wow.
Right. Yeah.
I'm outer vision as well, so you can imagine what it was, the shock.
Sweet. Nice. Yeah, like a little. It's interesting what the eyes are drawn to, right? It's like we just let them go where they want to go, and then they pick something, right? And they pick something to look at, and it's something that's either energizing, right? The pleasure, satisfaction, peace, and it kind of has an effect on the system. Or it can be something that, like, here Daniela is saying, Andrea is saying, calmer, right? Sometimes our eyes are drawn to things that have a soothing effect, right? And so that's like a recalibration of the experience, a recalibration of just registering safety, recharging the batteries, and orienting to pleasure, orienting to things that are more enjoyable. Sometimes there are going to be times where we're in a bit more of a high intensity state, or it's like harder to get out into orientation because the inner draw is so strong, and the inner draw to the high intensity in the body is so strong. And then that takes a little bit more effort. But when we're in a setting like this and we have enjoyable, interactions, and we have, a nourishing setting, things get a lot easier. Right. And that's really kind of the name of the game here for our work. Daniela was looking at the snow. Very nice. Lucretia, laptop, eyes going to the laptop. Yeah, interesting. I wonder what about the laptop. Yeah, also Danielle saying more energized. Yeah, cool. Very nice.
Thank you.
That feels good.
It does. Yeah.
All right, so then final phase here, phase 3. prosilience phase. And you can see here, this is the phase of auto-regulation. And we speak to that so much in human design, right? Because this is what ultimately we want to surrender to, is the life happens, right? And the body knows exactly where to go and what to get up to. The body lives the life, all of that. That's a very specific kind of phase 3 experience. And of course, we all have that experience in some variation or some expression or for some stretch of time. And what we're looking for is to really stabilize that and build the foundations for that. Also within that, to see that this is a system that can grow, and it grows through interaction with the world and through feedback with the world, through relationships. It grows in all kinds of ways to build new structure, to develop, to unfold who they are in the world. And the markers for that are basic trust, joy, and what they call here in organic intelligence, nishkam karma, which is basically sense of purpose or felt sense of destiny, right? And we say in human design too, right? Like you live your type strategy and authority, your purpose, your life's purpose that is unique to you will naturally come to emerge. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to try and make it happen. It's part of the natural process. It unfolds. And that's really the process of phase 3 here, where we have an auto-organizing system. It's a system that's no longer under the draw of kind of the addiction to negative high intensities. It's been freed from that. And it's now interested in staying well and remaining organized within itself. And it can improvise to do that. It's kind of connected to that ongoing dialogue with the environment, and it's in sync. All the different parts of the biology are in sync with themselves. So for example, people who come in with like physical syndromes where parts of the physiology are kind of compromising one another, right? I had that, like when Alannah met me, I'm in so much better shape now than when she picked me up. You know, I was crippled on one side of my body, like I could barely walk, and there were migraines and things like that. You know, typical phase 1 conditions that, you know, took a long time to heal, and, you know, consistent support and practice. But then eventually, once the system starts to auto-regulate, it knows how to heal these things. It knows how to do that. And so there's a certain basic experience of coherence, where the way my body expresses itself in the world is kind of also synchronizing the way my personality gets to express itself in the world. There's a coherence between what I say and the actual state that I'm living. All of that comes through. And then, yeah, here there's, you know, in NOI, we call it organic intelligence. In human design, we might call it, you know, the design, the inner authority, your body, this organic intelligence that is organizing your experience for you. You don't have to spend any extra effort or energy on the self-regulating in phase 3. That's all now done. That's integrated as part of the system. Your design does it for you. And then there's an experience of balance and being where we have both sides of the coin, the this and the that. In phase 2, there's a lot of emphasis on the pleasure and like on inhibiting the intensities and getting away from, like, you know, the downside of things, right? And it's like, that's a phase that we move through. But, you know, if you're, you know, concerned that your anger and your frustration and all these other pieces, that they're going to go away, don't worry, you'll get them back, right? But then you'll be equipped for them in phase 3, and you'll be able to swing them and integrate them and process them so that they don't get stuck in your system or fragment the system because they're too intense, right? And that's such a key. And the experience of that is balance and being able to just have a full experience of living that we can let go into and experience what it really means to be human at this time on the planet, to be yourself, right? And so that's our aim. That's where we're going. Okay, so Alannah, please.
That is where we're going. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. Thank you for mentioning the piece about the frustration and Anger is always, it's really important. So now phase 3, we've arrived at surrender. Simple life enjoyment is the main course on the menu here. How can we enjoy our lives more and more? And we discover basic trust in life because we have a biological system that auto-organizes all on its own. We have background orientation, we call it online. So there's enough orientation with the system that it just starts to happen on its own. It's not a practice that we have to continually engage in phase 3. Although sometimes we reach for it, sometimes it's really needed in those moments, but we start to develop enough capacity on the backside of that. We're living in a very different system, and we have a very different experience of being. The body has got you. It knows how to navigate the intensities as they come up and come down. The system is auto-regulating. We have the energy, there's our battery, for cultivating better environments for ourselves and for others. And the best news is we have the energy and innate support now for evolutionary growth. That deep change that calls to each of us, beckoning us forward, and we can start to focus on what really matters. Because our system is now experiencing balance and agency and a capacity for integrating chaos creatively, we have something to relax into. Our biology is in sync within itself and with the environment, and is embedded in many systems of belonging from the local to the cosmic. Oh, and look at that. We have a little 4-legged friend joining us. So sweet.
Timely.
And in phase 3, our aura really starts to operate correctly as we are effortlessly aligned to our unique design. We have regained the ability to set timely boundaries without violence, excess amplification, or ambivalence in our communication. Yeah, I have a manifestor daughter, an emotional manifestor daughter who's 15, and learning to set boundaries with her without being too difficult, too amplified, or too excess in my communication has been really interesting gift, and something I've really I'm noticing is emerging over in the last 6 months or so. It's really starting. I was just noticing that this morning, actually. I set a boundary with her and I was like, all right, that felt good. And because we're held by a system that knows what to do and where to go and how to improvise. And when we get to work with clients here, we can deal with more complexity and intensity without losing our sense of support, orientation, and enjoyment. Now there is the readiness to work with challenges that were really too much for phase 1 and phase 2 to be able to integrate. And now we are able to surrender into type strategy and authority as something that simply happens, no longer having to effort for it. Our purpose begins to organically emerge. And at this point, there is a homecoming into being, and passenger consciousness dawns. And we look back on our process and we see the lines of continuity all along. The purposeful events, the serendipity, and meaningful relationships that got us here. Yay for phase 3.
Oh.
Oh. Oops. So that is the end of our presentation. And I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions or perspective you wanted to share. We also just wanted to mention, for those of you who maybe joined in later, that after our time today, if there's anything that piques your interest or you have questions about, and then you're emotional and you need some time, please feel invited to reach out to us through our website. As I mentioned, we offer a free consultation to get to know us, and we'd be happy to connect with you further. So just want to mention that. But yeah, great. Hagen, could you actually stop your screen share, and then we can actually see.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll open it all up. That'd be
That'd be great.
Lovely.
I have a
And
question.
you had a question. Yeah, Maris, did you want to go first there? Oh,
I
yes.
don't know, Lucretia, would you like to go first? I'm happy to wait.
Yes, please.
Oh, hi,
Okay.
Lucretia. I see I'm sorry, I missed your chat here. Yep. Oh,
Yeah, I
this is
put a
a
question
good
in the chat,
question.
and then yeah, maybe you didn't see it. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Lucretia. Did you want me to answer that
Yeah, it's
question?
the same question. It's the same question, whatever I wrote in the chat about the control. What is actually meaning letting go of control? Because for me, this is horror. And I have a lot too many situations where I didn't take control and I really paid a big price. So what do you mean by that? Because I need to understand it, because for me it's quite important to be in control.
Yeah, I can relate. I have the hanging 21 in an undefined heart center. So, and also my 21 is my Chiron wounding. So it's really what I'm learning about right now, and what is a big, big theme in my life. And but I'm wondering, I feel like I just need a little bit of a moment to feel into my response. So meanwhile, I'd like to hear what Hagen has to say, and then I'll come back around.
Okay. Lucretia, is it okay if I chime in? We have 3 phases, and we see that control is in the center. Control is like the whole phase 2 process. And there is kind of a perspective of, we can't really let go of control until we really have it first. Until we really, really have it first and experience it and enjoy it. Enjoy our controlling and finding the right balance between not controlling too much, but also not too little, right? And there's like a point where it's like, okay, once we really feel like we have that, then it'll feel natural and self-evident where you can let it go. Where it's like, oh yeah, okay, I don't need to feel like I'm in control here. Or even in situations where you are in control, phase 3, thinking phase 3 here, there's a higher perspective. It's like, okay, I'm in like a role, or I'm like in a controlling role where I have to control what comes in, what comes out, and how the resources are used and so on, right? We're on the material plane here. There's, that is, without that, nothing would function.
Definitely. And for example, if you're a businessman or a businesswoman,
Oh yeah,
if you're
totally.
not capable to control, oh my God, you're not gonna
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, totally. So it's like it's all context dependent in a way. Um, and so we're not dispensing with it. We're not telling people, hey, stop controlling, don't control. No, we're really trying to look at what is the context here? Where do we need to experience the level of control that we really need in order to live our lives? And that counts for everybody, even people who don't have any kind of controlling gates or anything like that. And then also there's a natural unfolding where you'll see, hopefully for yourself, where it's self-evident then, where you can kind of let go of control, and that feels like the thing to do next, where it's not something that's forced upon you, where it's not something that is like, okay, I have to do this in order to grow or evolve. But it's like, yeah, this is something that I now really feel like I can do. It's kind of a natural thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I actually like better the word management
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
rather than control. I think
Right. Yeah.
I love to say self-management or any type of management.
Uh-huh.
Management of your centers, of whatever. It's like management, yeah. Good management, bad management.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just
Mm-hmm.
chime in on this? I don't have obviously ego defined or the gate 21 or channel of education. Oh, it's an educational line there you have. But yeah, I just feel like everything just comes back to that strategy and authority, right? It's like you have this natural inclination to be in control because you can be in control. You can command. You are the queen, right?
Just watch me.
Oh yeah, I love your energy. It's cool. I feel very held in your presence. And I love that you really command the room. But it's like, I imagine, is there a true response here to being in control? Is it your mind meddling in because, yeah, whatever's going on is this mental control of, I need to be in control of whatever the situation. Yeah. Or is there a real response? Am I really wanting to be? Yeah. Because the distortion in these life forces that we have, like I know for it from myself, yeah, so I guess as a regenerator, yeah, do you feel the difference in
It's very difficult for me in my case particularly because I'm single definition, so everything blends in. Um, and the earth is there in the 21, so 70% of me is that. If I am really using the human design knowledge, I should be thriving only when I'm in control of everything, which is really, really challenging. It's really challenging to, as Hagen said, when to and when not to. That's really, it's like that should take a lot of, not a lot of, but really awareness to catch myself when I'm maybe controlling when I don't have to, and when I'm not controlling but I have to. And I don't remember who that teacher was, but he said that the heart is also a pressure center, and I'm like, spot on. This is so much pressure there.
The
With the
manifestation center. The manifestation center, not a pressure. The ego is not a pressure center. It's also manifestation of the currents of consciousness. We have two consciousness of streams, that go to the ego, the tribal, which is
I'm
what
very
really goes.
knowledgeable, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not a pressure center, no, the ego. It is a manifestation of matter, of is different pressure. Pressure is head and root only.
Yeah, but it is a
But
pressure center
can I just
in
say
a
something as
different way,
well?
because the
Yeah, but
heart has to pump, so it is the muscle itself is actually under pressure all the time, because in order to pump up the blood in all the body, you need pressure. So yeah, anyway.
Okay.
I am I deal
I would like
with
to, I'm
with
sorry, Marys, but I would like to hear what Alannah has to say. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
thanks. Just one sec. I did want to yeah, this question of control within maybe I'm wondering if this might be valuable to you or not, just to see if this resonates in your experience. The way that that we work with control within the framework of OI specifically, right? Is learning to control where we put our attention. So it's a simple exercise or a process of recognizing, where is my attention mostly? Is my attention mostly on what's wrong and the not self tendencies? And then therefore, does my open heart with the hanging 21 then have the impulse then to try to control that? Or is my attention more controlled in terms of focusing on my environment and feeding myself the information that's nourishing and supportive to my system? And can I use that control to really focus and use my energy, because I have the energy for that. I know I have the energy to act on my own behalf, my own well-being, my own care. And I know for myself, what's the most valuable for me is the more that I control my attention and take it outside and move it off of the what's wrong attention, and I focus on that which is enjoyable and pleasurable, then I find what do I actually have the energy for or not? And what am I being asked to control? Right? Because that's the thing that happens in my life, in my little tribe here. Boy, I've got lots of ideas about all the things I should be controlling and all the people that are in my life and how they should be doing it. And I want them to do it this way. But that's me focusing on, in many ways, the what's wrong attention there. They haven't asked me for that. They haven't asked me for that level of control in their lives. So I'm wondering how that, like, if you might have the energy, Lucretia, if you'd like to experiment with just noticing and bringing some control into where you put your attention. Does that resonate with you at all?
What's the question again? Because
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll start again.
yeah, I was listening, yeah, and then I got kind of hypnotized or something.
Okay, no problem. That happens to me too. Could you say that again? I totally get it. Yeah, I'm wondering if you have the energy to experiment with controlling where you put your attention. And
You mean right now or basically?
just moving forward, right? And starting to notice for yourself, like taking that control that you have and saying, I'm going to stop putting my attention on what's wrong all the time and move it towards more orienting and connecting with my environment and utilizing
Yeah,
that control. Yeah. Do you have the
that would
energy to
be.
experiment with that?
Mm,
Mm, mm, mhm, mhm. And then you get to see what happens. And then you get to see how control shows up. And you get to see where control is needed and where it isn't.
mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I'm writing something down. I'm going to put this piece of paper on the wall, and I'm
Awesome.
going to do exactly that
Yeah, great. Awesome. That's like me too. I do.
during my next days. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Great. See if you have the energy for it. See what happens there. And that's like me. I've got lots of sticky notes all over my house with little things like this.
Yeah, it really works for me.
Me too. It's something to respond to, right?
Exactly. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for answering about this discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. It's a really important one. Really appreciate it. Thank you for bringing it. Mm. Hmm. Hmm. I see
Yes.
we're at time, but I'm happy to, yeah, go ahead, Lisa Marie. Happy to answer my question too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here with us and connecting. And yeah, anyone else would love. Maris, you've got your hand up again.
Mhm. Yes, Maris. Yes.
I would say still, not again, but still,
Yeah.
couple of things. The first question I had for you both guys there, and can I make a comment about what has been discussed now? If you, let me see, your name is a very unique name, Lucretia. Would you like to hear what I have to say about what has been discussed about your single, your 2145?
Sure, yeah, of course.
It's very short, right? My experience with doing analysis and bringing human design to people is to look into their definitions. And it's very clear to me, I've been doing this for almost 19 years now. Definition is definition. You are a controller. No, don't fight with that. And follow strategy and inner authority. You're going to be controlling all the time. Your chemistry is going to be controlling. You've got the gate. It is a gate that take the ego to the throat. I don't even know your design. If are you a only manifester? This is a manifester channel, or are you a generator or
Manifesting generator.
so respond, go to body, what the guys are saying here on those three phases, is going to the body and a comment I like to make for the guys is I come from the linguistic background. Before human design, I was doing post-graduation in linguistic studies. And my focus in human design is with the choice of linguistics. And I can see, and I may be able to share while I'm alive, my next years ahead, how important is language for the human design, the conditioning. I actually will look for you both to talk about that because I felt curious to come into the 3 phases with the vocabulary, because I was doing my post-graduation study. The question was, why somebody get in their head such expression and not another one? What the person's modulating, which is something you're talking about, like for her to look what is correct for her to control. You are saying that take your attention, this all kind of together. So I find that words are really a very delicate place to be in human design. And so for the both of you, I like to make a comment about a word that called my attention on the third line, on the third phase, organic intelligence, right? It worries me a lot, the conditioned concept of intelligence in the world. The conditioned, the not self concept of intelligence is over linguistically. No, I would stay organic, This is what I'm talking about analyzing language, because I am really getting into bringing really what I call in Brazil the foundation courses, literacy for the being, and that begins in language. And so I can see this thing and these stages. Like if I ask you, how was language on phase 1 for you? Were you still using very much of those words that you were coming from, the conditioning biochemistry, time of your body? Phase 2 has been change in language. What was the inner grammar? How you building the inner semantics? Because human design builds a new semantic and how you create concept of things. Can you imagine our brains creating concept of things about these 3 processes? It's amazing. It's brilliant. I find that these 3 processes are very important. It's going to help a lot psychologists. That I have many students, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists here in Brazil, and that will be interesting to go and to investigate, I would say, and so that's I like to just share with you, and to Lucretia that I stopped talking about the thing. Definition is definition. You are a controller. Be a great, satisfied controller. Just don't fight with it. Don't. You are here for I have, I don't have. This is in your words, in your rhymes, in everything. So I find it great to see it. And so just to add that, and when it's correct, when the planets allow, I definitely would like to go and get in touch with you if you are interested and to know a bit of my work as well, regarding to bring some kind of analysis about the change of language. How is the change of language in those 3 process? I find this is very, very important, because there is an abstract life for people within those 3 processes, aren't they? Each process is an abstract life for you, for your design, what you share with us today, isn't it? But can you imagine everybody that is in design really following? What is their first stage? Wow. What's the second for that person? I find it really amazing to go through this. You probably will be doing that for the next years also, I can imagine. That's what you do now with your people. So I'm very glad to be in this geometry, because I'm here really by strategy and authority, and I'm really happy to meet you. Thank you. And thank you guys here to have patience to listen to my wonders here.
Love
Thank you so much.
passion. Love Marissa.
What to do.
Thank you, Maris. Thank you for your participation. Yeah. And thank you to all of you for coming. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention and sharing this time with us. We really appreciate it.
Do you have a response to stay on for a little longer, or if there's any other questions?
Sure. Yep, you bet. If anyone has any other questions, happy to. Are you doing okay there, Hagen, to stay on for a little bit?
I might be snacking on some dates or something.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. Cheers, good. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Melanie Schmidt, I've seen you pop up in many online sessions. I'd love to interact with you if you want to come on, or there we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, it has been really, really interesting. You're combining these two concepts or systems or whatever, because I felt I was really challenged with my deconditioning process. I'm in my experiment now for 1.5 years, and at the first few months it has been really chaos, and I felt stuck all the time. So it was really nice to relate to your to the 3 phases and see how it has progressed for myself, and that I'm now much more relaxed, and that I'm not in that stuck situation anymore. And it's in times it has been really, really challenging. So in between. So, and I'll see how it goes further on. So there will be, I'm emotionally defined too. So, well, there are lots of ups and lots of downs, and
wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. I think so many of us can relate to that, and what you're sharing in 1.5 years. It's intense, as we were talking about, right? And these changes are big and intense. And I'm really glad to know that this map is helping you to kind of just frame your own experience and understand where you are in that trajectory. And I also really heard you say that the shifts that you've made too. So congratulations on that and the ease that you're finding. And we're just going to keep moving in that direction.
And having trauma, experienced trauma, it has been very challenging to follow my strategy and authority. It's really kind of thrown me off track completely. So and I decided to get some assistance and some guidance too, and that really helped me. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have continued with the experiment, because it has been so challenging for me.
Oh, good. I'm glad to know that you're getting support too. We all need that from those of us that are a little bit further on the journey, right?
That's great. And
got a lot of help along the way. Thank goodness.
And great that kind of support you're giving. It really feels very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To trust the process, right? And support, connecting with those we resonate. And if you resonate with Hagen and Alannah, wonderful. I can really feel what you're growing here and wanting to nurture. It's really beautiful.
Thanks, Lisa.
Hey, Julia, you came in a little later. She's the other. Yeah, there she is. Gwyneth.
The other Julia. Oh, nice. Yeah. Hi there.
One another.
Hi, I'm sorry I missed half of the presentation. It looks so interesting. Yeah, the whole thing about process. Every time I hear process, I'm a 6 line. So I want to see what they're doing with process. I know about process in my experience.
Yes, you do. All about process.
So I'm looking forward to watch the recording. Yeah, it sounds really amazing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all your energy and efforts that you've been doing to organize us all and bring us all together. Really appreciated. Seeing you behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Incredible support. She's got everyone's back. We need to actually get her a cape. Yeah.
Oh, nice. What would be on the cape?
Super Julia. I don't know.
Super Julia.
Julia.
We all
Well,
need
my second line says an invisibility cape.
Yeah.
One that I can hide with.
Yes,
And Harry Potter.
understood. Yeah, wonderful.
You need support. Yeah. So yeah, that is a very important key, that we all do need support, and we're not in this alone, but we can feel very alone. So yeah, connecting with others where we can that are in this process as well. And yeah, feeling vulnerable enough to be able to share ourselves with the right others. Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone else want to come on and share their experience? We do have this room open, so I always love, hearing from others, and everyone's having a fun time online, live. You know, they've been dancing, and
Well, they're all sleeping now, right?
yeah, they were in this cacao ceremony actually, and it was so funny. It was like, oh yeah, we really do look like freaks. Everyone's just like doing these like weird things. It's like, yeah, this isn't a cult. It's not a cult. Don't worry.
A cacao
And
ceremony.
that was one of the themes. Like, I don't know if you have a chance to watch that one, but I don't remember her name. She has a strange name for me, but she was discussing this, like the difference between, because somebody came up to her and actually attacked her about following this cult of human design, and she just like put it in little pieces and say, this is not a cult for this, and this. It was great.
I know that.
A great,
Wow,
great
cool.
presentation. Yes.
I'm picking up something. Yeah.
Yeah.
She did a good job. Yeah, she was like, yeah. Loved it. It's beautiful. A little bit tricky with the sound there. Was it Ben? He was DJing, but the sound wasn't great. Picks up humans really well, but yeah, it's such a trial and error process, this whole integration of live and online. It's wonderful. So yeah, it's just lovely to connect with everyone online, and open up the mics and cameras if you guys want to jump on and say hi to Alannah and Hagen while we have them.
I'd love to say hi to Jean. If you feel like turning on your camera. We've met in analyst training a while back.
Call them out. Call them out.
She may not be available. I think she's in China. Oh yeah. She's having a question here, Hagen. Do you want to?
Do you want me to read it out for you?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
She says, I'm curious how the organic intelligence helped with Hagen's sense of splenic authority, and Alannah, how her emotional authority, both a split definition.
Right.
Good question.
Yeah. You want me to go first, Alannah, or do you
Sure,
want to go?
it's a big question.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about those things together, right? The split definition and the authority process. So already when you have a split, it can take longer to come to a decision. But if you're splenic, you're supposed to act in the moment. So how does that work? Right? Yeah, what has the organic intelligence to do with any of that? I'll share a little bit about my phase 1 process with that. Is that I have a splenic authority that is partially conscious, so meaning mostly unconscious for me. Right? It's my 18 in the 6th line is conscious. My 58 in the 5th line is unconscious. Right, so it's like, how conscious am I of that authority, really? Now much more than I was. And I have some good anecdotes for how it works too. I can share about the bears a lot and tell them about how does your splenic authority work when you're meeting a bear in your backyard. Right. So First thing I want to say though is in phase one, what I was doing was I was introspecting. It's called interoception, like paying attention to body sensations and all kinds of subtle physical sensations, right, in the body. And that's in coaching people by design, we tell them to pay attention to like very, very subtle physical stuff, right? Like your splenic authority giving you a physical cue in the moment about something that you're meeting. And so I was like freaking out. It's like I don't want to miss my splenic authority, right? I don't want to miss the signal. You know, is that a real signal? Is it not a real signal? Can I trust that? Can I not trust that? And so I was going really inside, also with my what's wrong attention, right? Trying to scope out, you know, what's going on in my body and which one of these things is my splenic authority, right? Even outside of the context of any invitations, right? My logic was, you know, okay, the invitation will come and then I'll know, and usually I kind of do. And if I don't listen, I'll remember the exact physical sensation that I didn't listen to, you know, like that. I was kind of clear enough on that. But there was so much time for me in between invitations. Like I spent so much time alone during the early years, or the first few years of my experiment. I was like, okay, like I don't want my mind to run my moment-to-moment experience in between invitations either, right? I was experimenting with, okay, how does my splenic authority work for just moment-to-moment navigating and getting out of the mental rut of, okay, now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm doing the same thing that I always do, and that feels good because that's phase one, right? And so like I was kind of emerging out of that, but I was not yet really orienting. And the thing I learned over time was that any inner authority, and especially the splenic authority, is an interaction with the environment. It's, you know, it's some kind of response or in relationship to what signals the body is picking up from the environment. And within that, the body speaks. So orientation is key. And so I got access to my splenic authority in the moments that I had enough access to orientation, but there was a lot of time that I was just kind of lost in my inner world. And I was tracking a lot of body sensation. It was all getting really, really intense. And this kind of pull into the inner world just became stronger and stronger and stronger as it became more and more intense. And it became really dissociated from the outside world. So by the time Alannah picked me up, I was really skinny, you know, and then like, no, but I used to be a really muscular guy. I was really skinny within 2 years.
I know, I just imagine
Like,
it picking him up.
to the point where I could barely
He's
walk,
really tall.
you know. I barely exercised my root, and I'm supposed to do sports, and I have an active, you know, like I'm all left on the body side, so you know, strategic and active. And yeah, like I was just kind of trying to be a Buddha or something like that, thinking like, okay, this is eventually leading someplace, you know, and I was starting to have all kind of trippy experiences from being in freeze and so on, and it was not really, you know, taking me to my process. And it took, you know, invitation by a friend, you know, to bring me to organic intelligence, and like, God, see, I get it now, you know, my whole body just went zoom. And that's my splenic authority. Like when something really happens that's for me and that feels purposeful to me, there's like a tingling that I can't deny. And that feels really good. There's that splenic feel good, right? And then I know, all right, this is my trajectory. And then in the meantime, it's basically a simple kind of approach avoidance sense, like, oh yeah, that feels good, that doesn't feel good, oh, get out now. You know, it's like moment to moment. But for me to really connect to that, I had to get to orientation and then orientation to pleasure first. And I was just going on these magical moments in my life that I could remember. Like, okay, that was clearly my splenic authority. And the rest, I just spent all my energy on just connecting and trying getting out of that inner phase one draw, you know. So don't quite know how that works with my split definition. I'll have to ponder that a little bit longer before I can, you know, speak to that. But yeah, that was
Why
that
not?
was
a moment to explain that with the split. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. Maybe like Alannah, you've got my bridges, so maybe I'll just pass the mic to you, and then
And then
we'll
come
do
back.
a little bit of collaboration on this, and then we'll get there.
Yeah, we bridge each other's split, of course.
Great. And so how
Yeah.
about for you, Alannah? Yeah. And your emotional authority.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jean. I feel like the first, well, just to frame it, just to remind everyone, my authority is completely unconscious and split off from everything else. So I when I came into human design, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know this was, I knew something was happening, but I didn't really understand it. And it was such a relief to go, oh, you're emotional. Okay. So learning about my response, wait to respond, wait to respond, wait to respond. Okay. Practicing that, radically practicing that, and then wait some more for emotional clarity, right? And wait out the wave. Waiting. What I realized, so as I mentioned before, I was 5.5 years into my experiment when Hagen brought OI to me, and we started experimenting with doing sessions together in our analyst training. And as Hagen likes to say, I thought I was riding the wave, right? Riding the wave. Here comes a wave, and I'm riding it, and it's going. And I have the 4130, so it's like up and down, right? This massive wave. But what I didn't realize was I was actually amplifying that wave up and up and up and up and up. So taking my own inner experience, right? We can amplify each other's conditioning, and we can also amplify our own intensity. I've got 9 channels of definition. I've got full integration. I've got, anyways, a whole list of them. You saw them at the beginning. And what can start to happen is the mind in particular, right, starts to get involved in that wave process. And then before you know it, and the sensations are happening, and the chemistry's moving, and everything's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what helped me specifically with OI was sessions, one-on-one sessions, attuned support, where I could work with an OI coach and a mentor that can really help my system learn how to do this. Because we don't actually know when we're in phase 1 how to allow the intensities to come up, because they all come up. They always do. We can't avoid them. And then how to cycle down from that intensity, how to let go of the intensity at the right place, and how to actually enjoy that down. And to recognize for me what clarity actually feels like, which in the beginning of my experiment, I thought that clarity was like, speaking of Lucretia, you were talking about writing notes. I just am remembering when I was, early on in my experiment, I had this decision that I had to make, and I had it written on a sticky note, and it was on my dresser. And I was like, the way I was practicing that was I was like looking at it continually and like trying to figure out how I felt about it. How do I feel about this? How do I really feel about this decision I have to make, right? And so, and what happens with that is that it just keeps that chemistry moving and moving and moving. And so by actually not paying attention to the wave, not noticing those noticing the intensities, they're there. Like I can't deny that. Like anyone who's in my field sees it. I can feel, I can see the movement from hope to pain, from pain to hope. Like it's all happening there. But not to be totally in it and immersed in it and lost in it, and actually to keep myself connected to the environment, connected to the space that I'm in, to recognize that at some point, there's just going to be clarity, and it's just going to be the most obvious choice. And, you know, for me, then being asked the questions, of course, as a generator, I need to be asked, you have the energy for this? Are you clear about that? And it's just as simple as that. But the OI practice, I didn't get that until I started working with OI. Like for me, like I appreciate the question, Jean, because for me, that has been the most profound part of my process of tuning into my own authority and really recognizing what that's about, that it isn't a mind story, that it is a body sensation. It is the wave as it moves through my system, and it's bringing shifts and it's bringing change and it's updating my system. And now I have the capacity to be with it. My bandwidth is wide enough that when the wave comes through, it doesn't dysregulate me and disorganize me. It used to just lay me out. I'd be like, okay, here comes the wave, and down low, and I would have to, you know, just be out for half a day or whatever it was, right? Because I was just like, and now the wave comes, and sometimes there's times when I need to rest in it. I'm not denying that, but I also feel like I come out the other side and I actually feel more like I actually feel more connected to my life and more in a sense of coherency and a sense of like freshness or newness on the other side of the wave, instead of the destabilization or the dysregulation, as we were talking about earlier. So yeah, I cannot give more thumbs up. So if I could, I would give 100 thumbs up for especially emotional beings to work with the tools of OI and working with a coach and people that can really support that process. It's been invaluable for me. So thanks for the question, Jean. Do you have any follow-ups or anything you'd like to say? Yeah.
Well, I just want to say it's amazing your voice, both of you, has changed so much since I first met you. And then it's amazing to see how you grow and just keep the good work. And I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, Jean. Really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and bringing your energy. Hey, we really appreciate it. Thank you for the recognition.
Beautiful frequency shift. And yeah, you both are just, yeah, you are hypnotizing, Alannah, with your tone and your presence. Beautiful. And yeah, your structuring, Hagen. I love listening to you both. Yeah, lovely duo. Yeah, I can see why you're together. It's cool.
Thanks.
Any more thoughts? Have you any insights to this split, Hagen?
Yeah, you know, I did an analysis for someone recently who also has a split in his splenic, and sometimes, you know, I have to see what I write for other people because it might be a nugget for me, you know, and I wrote like, you know, notice your hunches in the moment and see if you can act on them. And sometimes the bridge may not be there and you may not be able to act on them. And then it may take some collaboration to come to your decision, right? So know who your bridges are, right? And it's kind of how I live, right? Like I'm here with Alannah. She's got integration. I've got the 28. So there's a dynamic. It was all correct. And so, you know, I follow my hunches. I act on them as best as I can in the moment. And then when I'm not sure about how to proceed, I just, you know, walk down the hallway and talk it over and see how things come together. Usually it's like, you know, just don't make a mental decision. Like just don't make a mental decision on it, and then things find their place and things work. Just, you know, stay safe. You know. Yeah.
The message I'm getting.
Nice. Stay safe. Don't make a mental decision. That equals stay safe. Love it. Love it, Hagen. That's a bumper sticker.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
have you ever given a thought about the fact that it's kind of a paradox, or at least to me it seems like a paradox, that we are talking about don't give authority to the mind, but the design crystal, that is the body, sits in the ajna.
Yeah, right.
Come on. How am I supposed to comprehend that?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really cool thing. Like, thanks for bringing that up, Lucretia. I have like an immediate thing on that. This is something OI showed me that OI did that human design did not. So the conditioning that I got in many of the human design settings was, oh, your mind, like humiliate your mind, to put it in its place. And there was a lot of devaluing the mind in order to take its authority away from the decisions, right? But in OI, there's a certain part of the journey where also in my own like support sessions that I receive, and in some of the courses that they have, where the design also speaks through the mind. It doesn't necessarily speak with a decision that you have to make, but it's providing resources all the time. Like your mind's biological. Who would have thunk, right? And there is actually supportive information that's relevant for you that can come through that's actually essential for your well-being. Like for actually like taking that in and receiving that with awareness. There's actually like good stuff that can come through the mental stream of experience, right? The mental channel of experience. I mean, it's not a channel in human design terms, but it's a channel in OI terms. So,
Yeah,
and
for
I was
sure, the
missing
mind
it.
is very useful for the observation. Otherwise, how we observe all that is happening
Right,
in the body.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. And it's like the observer capacity is like essential. Like in phase one, we actually there's something that we help people with where it's like, one of the things that's really important for us to do as professionals is guard people from experiencing overwhelm. Like in phase one, people might like experience overwhelm relatively quickly if we just, we tell them let's not do anything for like 2 minutes, right? And they're like, the system starts revving up, and it's like, oh, awkward silence for 8 seconds. Are you kidding me? No. It's like people come in that way, and then it's like all the way along through the process, like what we do our best for, really, or to do our best for is guarding overwhelm. And overwhelm is loss of observer. It's when the observer is just totally immersed in the experience. And much of what we try to do is actually bring kind of the mind on board to keep the observer online so that we can keep saying, like, oh, that's not me, that's a thought. That's not me, that's an emotion. And I am not that intensity. Because if I am that intensity, it can accelerate very quickly into that overwhelmed state that some people really experience way too often.
I think
Yeah.
I
Thank you for
think I
bringing.
probably have a lot of work in relation to that, because the sun and the design of the sun and the earth of the design
Mm-hmm.
are in the undefined root, in the 3839,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm cognition feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine what that is? In the root, undefined root, sun and earth, 70% feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I want to be in another galaxy,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
stop
Right.
experiencing everything so intensely. Even the information in the air, I can feel it in the body. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
message that I'm getting from both Alannah and Hagen is just this integration with the environment more, like when you come back to just feeling the body. Like the ajna is attached to the body, it's the brain system, right? So deep, yeah. And then the personality crystal sitting on the top. So it's the observer watching as well. So, but we have to equip it as a passenger to experience and watch what the body is doing and where it's taking us, and come back to being integrated with nature. We are part of nature. We're not separated from it, but we're trying to navigate it with that being in control, like it's strategic way of navigating through that control thing you were talking about before. It sort of brings me back to that. You can see control in many different dimensions, like, yeah, the passenger trying to control. But yeah, in your practice, I keep hearing this message of like, yeah, what you do with us before. It's just like, just take a look around, just start feeling, like, look, and how, yeah, where are you now? Like, because as you said, Alannah, in that recognition of feelings, you could be anywhere within that and it could be intense or whatever, but in this moment, I am just with it in the sea of my now, in this frequency of beingness. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
What comes to me is the difference between a conditioned and deconditioned mind, like this thing between being an observer can be very tricky. This whole idea of the observer can really take over the whole process of the conditioning, like you just described it so beautifully, Alannah. Like, I think this is my authority, so let's run my authority for me.
Exactly.
And it's so tricky. So I think the next step is what you're saying, like awaken the mind capacity to be actually the passenger. But for that, I think there's need to do other kind of practices. Like if you think about the body, when we lay down, when we are horizontal, in what cases we are like that? When we are healing, for example, when we are sleeping, I think it takes more of that somehow, like sipping into that, like, you know, like taking more moments into those states is what it takes to decondition the mind. That's my experience also in my own practice.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Hagen, if you could explain a little bit about why, maybe I can articulate this question. What I'd like you to explain is how the mind is constantly mapping our environment, regardless of whether or not we know it or not, that it's happening. And that takes a lot of energy. I might just explain this, but would you like to talk about, would you like to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so let's see if I can like weave some of these things from also with what Lucretia was saying. Is like there's basically one is the need to not be in an overwhelming environment. And something that we recognize with OI is that also the inner world is an environment, right? So this is an environment, and the inner world is also an environment for our attention. And that's all an intensity game. It's all about the intensity levels that we're experiencing, and that's a biological thing, right? And so what is counter to the phase one habit of revving everything up to the high intensity point, right? Because that's the habit. That's yeah. Anyway, we know that. What's counter to that is the orientation system that's rooted in a very fundamental process in the brain called mapping. Right? So the brain actually wants to be mapped in the here and now environment. And when it's got enough of that mapping online, it naturally feels safe. Because it knows like, okay, if something happens, I can jump over this thing and then I, go to the door and then I undo the handle, and it's got all these kinds of safety and security protocols that it knows how to run, that it's evolved, right, over all this time. But when that is limited, right, by force of conditioning, when that mapping is reduced, there is an underlying sense of safety that we don't have or don't feel. And then our system's overcompensating for that, right? That then it's like, okay, like that's hypervigilance, basically. I have to like effort and spend energy to try and get safe, right? And that's draining. That's totally exhausting. Right? So then we're in this catch-22 where it's like, I don't feel safe. I have to use energy that I don't have in order to try and get safe, right? And so we need help from another system that is kind of not in phase one to come out of that, where they take the role of, okay, I'm going to keep the perimeter here. You can just be here and rest, right? And my nervous system will let your nervous system know, that things are okay, because nervous systems do that. So we sit in the field with someone, or we sit even over Zoom. That works magically enough. I don't know how to explain that. Don't ask me. Even then,
Neutrinos.
yeah, neutrinos. Why? That's my go-to. Even then, the person can feel, okay, oh my God, somebody else is watching the field, and I don't have to take on that responsibility, and something shifts, right? And that's kind of the context. That's very different from like, okay, now let's talk about your design and figure out what's wrong and talk about all your problems and pinpoint in your chart where they come from and tell you all about your not self, that's a different story. But sometimes you have to just deal with that, right? It's like, okay, how do we build the connection and a safe relationship with someone, right? So that their system is like, okay, I trust you enough to kind of let go of all of this tending and just kind of receive support, right? And then not just receive support from, from us as providers, but also receive support from their own systems, and recognizing what those signals of support are and where they come from. That's kind of the process. So I'm kind of freely associating here, but I hope that kind of answered it. The basic thing is like our brain wants to map us in the environment, and the more we have a basic mapping online, ready, that we don't have to effort, the more energy we have available for living, right? And then we're not overcompensating for the lack of that. And that's what really marks the difference between these different phases. So all we're doing is joining with that impulse that the design and that the brain already has to recover itself, basically. And we've just kind of mapped and organized what that looks like step by step, so that we can recognize it when it's happening naturally in a session. You don't have to force it onto the client. Yeah.
Can I ask you if
Yeah.
what you're describing, mapping, is the same as the brain making connections with the environment?
Sure. Yeah.
I have read somewhere that at some point, like with age, I don't know which age, but yeah, as growing old, the capacity of the brain decreases significantly. And for example, if someone is, I don't know, 50 or 60-year-old or something like that, and they need to change country or city, for them it's going to be much harder than for someone who is 20 or 30 years old or something like that. Do you have any take on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for sure, like age is a factor, right? But and I will also say there's an and to that they're doing a lot of neuroplasticity research now, where they show that the brain is amazingly resilient, and capable of making new connections in ways that they didn't know was possible before. So what I'm hearing from Steve is that scientists are throwing neuroplasticity parties everywhere. The
Good
good
news.
news and bad news.
That's good news. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Not much to share. I can imagine how, delicious your sessions would be. Yeah, anyone would be lucky to be in your presence and be held by you both. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is wonderful. Again, just to remind you guys that you guys do have a free 30-minute session. I might even jump in to talk more with you myself.
Oh, we'd love that. That'd be so fun.
Julia, yeah, she's already there. So online, there's the link direct to it. You can book it in. I saw there's a little calendar there. So yeah.
Especially for all the work you guys have been doing, we'd be happy to do that.
What
Give you some
I didn't
pressure.
understand. What is that about the free session? I didn't understand.
So, Lucretia, on our website, which I'll put in the chat here, you can book a free session with us, like a free call if you have more specific questions or things that you'd like to explore with us. We offer that. I think I did that right. regeneratedesign.com. There it is. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Great.
You bet.
It's also on the sorry, I was going to say the IHDS, but the humandesign.ravefestival.com on your profile. It's actually got book a reading, and when you click that, go straight to your calendar, and you can book in a free 30-minute session with them as well. So, which is great. Yeah. Yeah. How's your energy, Alannah?
Starting to, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. What about you, Hagen?
Yeah, I'm ready to close.
You guys pulling on the string together, going, come on, let's go.
Oh yeah, we should. I didn't even think of that. I let go of the string. Did you? Oh, you just pulled the string.
Let's go. Let's go have some. What time is it for you guys now? Evening?
It's almost 4 o'clock here. Yeah, the sun's starting to set. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, well, I invite you. Yeah, I ask you to go and enjoy the rest of your day and feel that satisfaction and yeah, that success, and let that buzz throughout your beingness, because yeah, you guys were really wonderful and really beautiful to have you with us. Really appreciate the work that you do. Yeah. And so many offering. We need this, right? We need this nurturing now. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for doing what you do. And yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for holding such a beautiful space for us. Yeah, to step into.
Lovely to meet you guys. Yeah, really.
Thank you for being with us on this journey at the Human Design Rave Festival 2024.